Timothy,
man.
he, him in Florida. When does a fetus become a person? Hello, Timothy.
That sounds like fun.
Hey, uh, so I already know kind of what my position is on this. I want to know what your guys' position on it, specifically.
When a fetus becomes a person?
Well, when it gains personhood, not necessarily when it becomes a person, because technically it's always a human, but when does it gain personhood? I'm not talking about a soul. I'm talking about when you think it should gain the proper rights of a person.
Yeah, if you're talking about a soul, this is the wrong show to call it.
Yeah, no, we're not going to go down that road.
Yeah, I mean, are you asking us like our opinions, or are you asking like what the evidence points to? Like, what are you trying to drive at? Are you specifically talking about abortion, or are you just asking this question? Like, what should I speak to is what I'm asking you.
I'm asking what the evidence would point to.
Okay. So it's really important to remember that personhood is not a scientific question. It's an ontological question. It's something that there is no consensus on in scientific circles, in theological circles, in philosophical circles. There's nothing there. Because what is a person is such a fiddly weird thing. It's one of those things you would not be able to agree on the definitions that you're debating on in order to then debate on them. So there is no consensus on when a fetus becomes a person, or when a person is a person, or if a person is a person at any point in their life. There's just no consensus on that whatsoever scientifically.
Okay, then trailing on that, would you consider consciousness as a defining factor? Would you say that if you have consciousness then it is important that your life is preserved because now you are an actual thinking thing and not just some animal or just something in development? Would you say that that's an important factor?
Yeah. I would agree that it's an important factor. I would be very careful when saying that to make sure that I'm really hammering home that it is not the only piece of the puzzle, nor is it a necessary piece of the puzzle. So like, for example, the way that we actually define life in science, I'm a biologist, right? We have no definition of life in biology. We don't. Like I've been studying it for a long time. We don't have one. What we have is a set of categories. And if this thing has all of these qualities, then we can call it alive. And there's 7 different qualities that make something alive, but there are lots of living things that don't have all 7 of those. And there are lots of things that aren't alive that have a few of them. And so it's just kind of this fuzzy ground rules that we set on what we decide counts as life. Instead of having a set definition, because life itself is such a weird thing that we can't say it's exactly this. So I would say the same thing when we talk about personhood. Yes, consciousness is a factor, but it's not the only factor, and it's not a necessary factor necessarily, but sometimes it is, but usually it's not, but whatever. You know what I mean? That it would be a really fuzzy statement that wouldn't be as cut and dry as yes or no. I'm sorry. I know that's a really long answer, but it's really important to make it very clear.
I understand. Then this is going to be my final question. What's your opinion on it, if you're comfortable in sharing, Dave or Forrest?
Our opinion on what exactly?
Personhood?
On abortion or personhood?
Sorry, I forgot. On abortion, yes. On abortion, when do you think that it's not okay? Or a general range, not a specific week, like a general range from this point to this point. You'd say that it's kind of, for dire necessity while everything else is.
Right. I think not a bigger question, but an equally important question about abortion is the idea of bodily autonomy and forcing a woman to carry a fetus that she doesn't want to carry to a point of completion. And that's as big a question as the question of when a fetus becomes a person. Wouldn't you agree?
It actually ties in together, I would say, because like when you talk about it that way, it's important to remember that you can give this fetus full personhood. You can say that from the moment of conception, it's a complete and total human being. We can both agree that I'm a complete and total human being, right? Like, I hope. Right. My mom is my actual birth mom. She gave birth to me, and she has the same blood type as me. If my kidneys fail and I need blood right now, I could theoretically go and plug a tube into her arm and start siphoning my blood through her body. She is my actual mother. I am her actual son. She would be keeping me alive with her body. But at any point, she could decide, I don't want to do this anymore, because that's her right. That's her
she
body.
has consent.
That decision
right.
would kill me. That
Mhm.
decision would end my life, but she wouldn't be a murderer in that situation. She would be controlling her own body and saying that I'm not allowed to use her organs without her consent. And it's the exact same thing. If you say a fetus is a complete person, sure, give it all the same rights that I have. I don't have the right to use somebody's body without their consent. So
Mhm.
therefore, neither does. So personhood is kind of irrelevant, because even if you grant it entirely, it's the exact same thing as if it doesn't exist. This person has a body. They get to decide what happens with that body.
Okay, well, there's one thing that I want to make a point of. I don't think that bodily autonomy exists for one reason, or this would be a point that I would make if I was debating with the person. What about in the case of conjoined twins? Let's say that both of them are living. Does one have the right to kill the other?
At that point, it's a weird fuzzy gray area, and that's why I was couching all those statements before to say that every part of this is a million fuzzy gray areas. And this is a great example of why even something as clear-cut as bodily autonomy, which we should be able to all agree on, has fuzzy gray areas.
Yeah,
I just
that's a
don't
tough
think the
one.
pregnancy is one of them.
Okay, thanks for calling. It was a great time. Thanks.
Thank you, Timothy.
I'm sorry that we didn't give you a clear-cut answer, man, but there aren't any. And like,
sometimes
that's
there aren't.
fact.
Sometimes there are not clear-cut black and white answers. There's a lot of
There just
nuance
aren't.
here.
Yeah. Everything is gray. There's some darker shades of gray and some lighter shades of gray, but everything is gray.
Yeah. Thanks, Timothy.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks,
it.
Tim.
Bye-bye. Those are tough, and when we start trying to reduce everything to black and white, right and wrong answers, we often just stumble all over ourselves.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
That's true.